Ah. Hey, hold on, we're going live in just a second with my dogs. Hold on.
Okay.
All right. Come on. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live with Danielle Kovachevich. Danielle, it's great to meet you. I'm, good buddies with your husband. We go way, way back. He was on the show last week. And I'm looking forward to talking to you because you are founder and lead coach at Detroit Academy of Etiquette. Mm-hmm. And I think it's such an interesting topic today because with phones and with texting and with video, and it's so hard I think it's so hard for the younger generations to have the same etiquette that we older generations, and important for older generations to understand the younger generation's etiquette and kind of like find kind of that middle spot. And so talk a little bit about, I know kind of in a nutshell, you guys offer series and programs intended to educate and entertain, all ages of not only children, but top level executives that you're working with. So, talk, just kind of give us a little background of how it came about and what it's all about. And welcome
to the show. Yeah, thank you. John, thank you so much for having me. It truly is an honor to be here with you today. So my company, I started it this year. I've been doing corporate training for a couple years, etiquette training in the corporate front. And I decided to take the plunge and start my own business. And like you mentioned, I work with, children all the way to top level executives. And our goal is sort of helping our clients feel confident in all types of situations. So not just the professional situations like networking and interviews, but also social situations. So that's sort of the exciting part, is it really does benefit, our clients on all different levels. And like you said about bridging the gap, that's a big thing, like between the generations and how we communicate with each other. And that's a big part of what I do and what I teach. And especially with the younger generation a bit, we're trying to help them become better conversationalists, get off the devices, and, just even through body language and just the way they behave. So there's a lot going on in the etiquette world.
I know we could really have kind of like a 4-hour, like multi-tiered discussion, but I want to kind of, I want to kind of start just on exactly kind of what you do, right? So let's say I'm a top executive, right? And so I'm a top executive. It's interesting. As a business coach, I see a lot of executives, top executives, owners of companies, they don't know how to communicate effectively with their people. And I watch them at team meetings. I watch them and their lack of ability to influence, get their point across, set a vision, articulate their vision, and have a combination of effective communication, gratitude, empathy, while still holding accountability. And so I think what you're teaching is great, but go into a little bit more detail on the top, like the executives that you work with and where you help them find alignment.
That's a great question. So it's exactly like you said, I'm working with executives and CEOs, CFOs of companies, and they are so well trained and well educated, but yet people skills are the part that sometimes people need coaching on. I'm sure you've heard of it.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second, not to break your flow, but it's not sometimes, I think it's all the time.
Yeah.
It's the people skills. It's the understanding what drives people and not being a robot. So I just say that because I want I think the first level is awareness. I just want people to open up their ears a little bit louder.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do. And I don't know if you've heard that Harvard study, but that 15% of future success is attributed to technical skills, which are education, training. 85% is our people skills and how we get along with people, how we relate to people. And the important thing is not how we relate to people like us, because that's the easy thing. It's easy to connect with people that we have common interests, but to relate to people that aren't like us. And that's really the challenge. And the people that can learn that skill are really the most successful in business.
Well, you're talking about also, and I've had a bunch of guests on the show talking about inclusion and diversity. And, a lot of times you walk into companies and everybody looks the same. And then you have companies where everybody doesn't look the same. And those companies are a lot of times having better ideas, more collaboration. I mean, it's, because they're learning a lot of the skills you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so where does somebody begin, right? I think everything always begins with awareness, somebody wanting to be aware, mindset, and realizing that the same level of consciousness that got you where you are will not get you to where you want to be. So where does your client begin the journey?
Well, so what you said is you keep saying awareness, and that is like really the foundation of etiquette. And what we teach is having an awareness of how we make other people feel. And there's a way to do that. And it's really through being someone who's, like you said, inclusive and has charisma. And actually the cool thing is, and that's the one thing I want my clients to always feel, is that these things can be taught. They do come easier to certain people, but they actually can be taught. And that's exciting that there's a lot of opportunity for people, And so clients would come in, we do group trainings, we do one-on-one private sessions. We've had executives come in and either I'll work with them one-on-one, or they'll say, look, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z with my team. Can we, like, when you create your presentation and tailor it to my company, these are the things I want to focus on. So it just, I definitely have set programs, but I definitely cater to what my client needs.
Yeah. And let's talk about maybe some of the top 3 areas where they're the most vulnerable and need that most help. Because I think if somebody's listening to this, watching this right now, listening to it later, this will have a life of its own once we're done recording it. It's live now. And it'll be all over social and et cetera, right? For years and years and years. So somebody's listening to this whenever, what are maybe the top 3 things that top executives come to you and that they really need their help? Because I want someone to really kind of say, oh, wait, I can relate to that or that or that.
Okay, so let's see, the top 3. I will start with this. As I mentioned, charisma. Have you ever been to an event where, and Jon, this is probably you, but the person walks in and everyone's sort of drawn to that person. They have a good energy, they're positive. That's who we all want to become. And that's the person we want to talk to and be around. So we try to teach that through the programs. And that would be something a lot of our executives are trying to help, especially, some of their team with, how they can become that it person that everyone is drawn to. And we go through certain things. For example, having a positive attitude. Body language is a huge thing. We coach people with little tricks. They can, for example, I can give you one example. Like when you're thinking about the way you present yourself, if your chin is parallel to the floor, that's the perfect position. But if it's down a little, you send the message of being shy and not confident. If it's up, you send the message of being arrogant. So just helping, these teams, these businesses, help their people be the best they can be. Another thing we work on.
I just want to comment on that for 1 second. And those are subtle things that it's not like everyone's born and realizes that. You either pick up on it intuitively or you need the reminder. Because some people are doing stuff like that and they just don't know. A shy person may look down and it's not necessarily anything but them just wanting to protect themselves.
100%.
And so it's what I love about coaching, what I love about what you're doing is it's the little tips that can make a big difference. I mean, studies will show that you are judged within the first 7 seconds. You walk into a room, whether we like that or not. We want, energy carries itself.
It does. And that's that 7 seconds is before we even speak.
Correct.
It's the way we look and the way we present ourselves and the way we carry ourselves. And it's so important. And I just, and that's another thing, coaching people on first impressions. That's huge. We determine if we want to continue talking to this person or we want to move on.
Right.
So, those are all coachable things. And another topic that I just thought of is, and this seems like a simple thing, but is coaching people on how to behave at different events, whether it's a networking event or a business dinner, and teaching them that it's not about the food and the drinks and how to connect with people and focus on building a relationship, because that's really what business is built on is relationships.
You're kind of like the movie Hitch, but for
I love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. All right, so let's talk about the kids that you work with. Because, you're working with kids of all ages. about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a Young Entrepreneurs Week where I interviewed everybody was under 17, 18, 19 years old, ranging down to, I think, 12, 13 years old. And, what are you teaching them? Because it's hard to get off of your device. And even for adults, we become kind of, immune and desensitized to the idea that everyone is on it. So how do you deal with that?
It's a great question. And, I love working with kids. My very first job was a middle school teacher. So I'm like the one human on the planet that loves middle school children, but I have 4 of them right now. So
Yeah.
It's a little different as a parent, but,
Right.
but I do. And I think that if I could say, like, we teach all kinds of things from table manners to, introductions, how to introduce yourself, how to speak to adults. But the one thing that I challenge my students, my etiquette students, is to, we find that the younger generation often miss opportunities because things are awkward or uncomfortable. They might forgotten someone's name and they go to their phone. They look at their phone. That's sort of their way out. You're in the doctor's office waiting room or an elevator. And instead of making eye contact with people and smiling or saying hello, you look at your phone. And I mean, adults are guilty of this as well. But we teach them to put down the device and try to make eye contact and smile at least 3 people in one day, because you never know. You never know if you're going to be, sitting next to your next best friend or the person you're going to end up dating or whatever the case is. You're missing opportunities. So don't pass up on these opportunities to connect with people. And the devices are a very easy way to do that. And it's a good excuse when you're uncomfortable, but lean into those uncomfortable moments and connect with people.
Yeah, no, that's great. How important is a smile?
Oh my gosh. So it's so funny you say that, because with all of the mask wearing, I've had a lot of conversations about this, and a smile is so important, and I don't want people to stop smiling because they have a mask on. And actually the most telling part of your smile is your eyes. And that's what you pick up on the most. So continue to smile with the mask on. People need to feel that connection to others, right? More than ever.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this. Etiquette, are there certain things that are different for men and women?
So what I like to say in business, there's no gender considerations. Back in the day there were, but currently the current guidelines are that there's no gender considerations. So, like, for example, opening a door, and I have 3 boys. I'm trying to teach them to be gentlemen and chivalrous, but I definitely, in business especially, find that, if you're walking through a door, whoever is there organically first, opens the door for the next person. So in business, we tend to say there are no gender considerations.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So let's go backwards for a minute, because as we're recording this, I'm losing track of my days. It's August 4th, 2020. Mm-hmm. We're in, COVID market. I mean, I guess that's what I can call it. And, you have recently decided to kind of take the plunge and start your own business. And I'm seeing as a business coach, I'm seeing a lot of people start their own businesses now, realizing they want to slow down. They don't want to be in a corporate job. They want to spend more time with their family, right? There's just a balance back to kind of some of their personal values. And so for someone who recently started a new business, what are some of the things that you would advise someone who wanted to start a business today, whether a full-time or side thing, as they're, trying to figure it out?
I think find a good mentor, maybe someone who recently did it themselves, which my husband, is recently, has it been a year or 2 now, but taken the plunge. And Kevin's been a great role model and example for me and the type of business leader I want to be. And I think just taking risks, take a risk, be afraid to fail, and just do what makes you happy. And I really decided to start my own business because I feel like more than ever, people need etiquette and kindness, and especially right now with the pandemic. And I mean, I've heard from so many of my clients how they feel they have to reinvent themselves right now. Like, for example, people aren't shaking hands, and that's a part of your first impression and your brand. And So just, you know, I feel like it's a good time to focus on etiquette and the way we treat people and awareness of how we make people feel.
Well, our energy is even more important than ever before because we can't connect by shaking somebody's hand or giving them a hug. And so we've got to really kind of exude the type of energy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that when it comes to, I don't even know if this is a word, I'm making it up, but Zoom etiquette, right? Like what Zoom etiquette, right? There's something called, you can get, I think it's called zumped, you know, you can get dumped on Zoom or something.
Yeah.
Tell me what, I can't remember, but what is etiquette when you are, you know, I do a lot of workshops around the country, and I used to stand up and do them, and I realized I couldn't fully be myself standing up when everybody else was sitting down. So I didn't like it, so I kind of shifted that a little bit. But what's etiquette on Zoom?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm not dating on Zoom because that would be would be stressful. But no, there's so much etiquette surrounding like the virtual meetings and Zoom. And basically my advice would be, I mean, there's a lot more to it, and this is a part of our training programs as well. But I would say if you are the leader, the host, take charge of the meeting, treat it like a regular meeting, you know, dress the way you want to look in a regular meeting, have your supplies, make sure that you take charge of that meeting with your agenda and welcoming people, introducing people. Also, at the end, make sure you wrap it up appropriately and be the last person to leave the meeting. If you are in charge of that meeting, make sure all of your attendees are off and have gotten what they need from the meeting.
Yeah.
There's a lot, especially with the kids in school and virtual meetings. I mean, we're going to be living on these devices for a while.
We are. You know, and I would add to that what I see, because I've done more Zoom meetings. I've been doing Zoom meetings for 5 years, but because I have clients all around the country, internationally as well. But lately, it's only been, you know, Zoom or and so one of the things I would say is, you know, like clean up your office or your laundry. You know, sometimes I'm talking to people and they're in their, you know, their laundries everywhere. I mean, their rooms, they look like slobs.
Right, yeah.
And they're like, you know, within these major companies. And so, yeah, I think, you know, that's, and I think that, you know, when it comes to Zoom, if you're doing one-on-one, you can actually shorten the screen so you're on top of each other. And so your eye contact, I didn't even realize this, my buddy Fish was telling me this. And so I started doing it. So you're on top of each, like you're.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of that Brady Bunch style. So it's like you're like this.
Right.
And that's helped a lot.
Well, even people, oh, sorry, John.
Go ahead.
Well, so even now you can, like, let's say your house is a mess, you can create like these virtual backdrops.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting with someone recently. I was like, your house is beautiful. They're like, oh, it's not my house. It's some fake backdrop. I'm like, that's awesome. That's a great idea.
No, there's so many things you can do. Let's talk about, because you mentioned this earlier, and I think, you know, you talked about awareness, you talked about kindness, but you also talked about confidence. And I think confidence is, you know, you were saying you get people to feel confident. And I think I would think when somebody calls you, there's a mix of like, you know, they want to feel more confident. They're feeling vulnerable in certain areas, but define confidence. Because I think, you know, in today's world where you don't have to do a presentation, you can do it in your computer. You know, you can do it at your computer. Like, what is confidence today?
I think it's I think it's like genuinely believing in who you are and what you stand for and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if those things fall into place, I feel like, again, there's some things that can be coached through body language and conversation, but I think it's just doing what you believe in and feeling good about that and who you are and what you're doing in the world and how you treat people. I think it all comes from that. If you feel good about that, you can project yourself, you know, in a confident way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just add, I think it's when you're in alignment, you can take action in a confident way because things kind of flow through you. You know, when you're in alignment, things just kind of flow. When you're not, and you know, if you're going in because things you think happen to you, which is very victim mentality, or for you, which is very centric, versus just kind of falling into alignment and things come through you. I think that's where, like, you know, unconscious, intuitive confidence comes from.
Absolutely.
But that takes time and practice and coaches to kind of help point some of this stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one thing, we work on a lot is how to become a good conversationalist. And so you can feel confident, but you can still be a little nervous about talking to the CEO of a company or in an interview or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We really do focus on how to become a good conversationalist. And I know we've all been in conversations that are terrible and the person monopolizes the conversation. And that's what you remember about them. You remember, I don't want to get stuck talking to that person again because they talked my head off. So there's a lot of things too, that, like I said, in addition to confidence, that are very coachable. And I can even talk about the conversation piece if you'd like, but
yeah. Did you just real quickly, did you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I've seen a couple episodes, but I don't.
So it has something called the big goodbye, right? Where it's like the person you want to ignore, you give them a big goodbye at the end. That's
right. I like that. I'll have to put that in my etiquette training.
I do want. It's a funny one. I do want to talk about the communication and some skills, but first I want to ask this. When because if people are listening to this, they may say, well, yeah, this is something that I need, but I can probably just teach myself, or I can read a book, right? And so where does somebody move from seeing this as an expense to seeing this as an investment? Because how does it, from a business perspective, how does it grow their bottom line, and how does it grow them just interpersonally?
Well, that's a great question. So etiquette is, I always try to talk about this. People think it's stuffy and being uptight. It's actually exact opposite. It's being kind, but it's also learning all of these guidelines and protocol, like the difference between a business introduction and a personal introduction, the difference between a business handshake, though we're not shaking hands very much right now, and a personal handshake, how to communicate with people when you're doing international business. There's a lot of guidelines. And so, I've worked with certain companies who only have, European clients. And when it comes to dining etiquette, there's so much, to learn when you're having a business meal with someone from another country.
Yeah.
So the way I believe this really helps build a business and build a company is that we make your team strong and confident. And when they feel confident and strong and they can build these relationships, you can then build business. And a lot of times, the one last thing I'm going to say is people get caught up on what to do. They get nervous and they're like, I'm not sure how to do this or what to do in this situation. When you know the guidelines, you feel confident and you can really focus on relationships and business. So it's just equipping your team, with the skills they need to be their best and to represent their company and the brand.
I love that. I'm just taking a note. Yeah, that's great. All right, so let's talk about some tips now. What are some of the communication tips that you share with people?
Well, okay, so when you have a conversation with someone, especially first impression, you want to make sure that we've all been in the conversation when someone's, looking around the room and kind of looking for the next person to talk to. You want to make sure that, you are giving them your full attention. You want them to walk away thinking they were the only person in the room and that they feel flattered and important.
Right.
And so asking genuine questions, making sure there's a back and forth, focusing on your body language. Fidgeting often can convey signs of nervousness or being jittery or anxious. Eye contact. Oh my gosh, there's so much. Just making that person feel important and like they're the only person you're talking to.
Yeah. And I think that's important for leaders of all businesses to remember that, right? The people that you work with, the people that are around you, that you're managing, et cetera, whether you own the company, whatever position you are, making people feel like they matter, and degrading people and being condescending, those companies are not going to last. They may be big and powerful, some, whether they're small, medium, or large, but the way the world is going, and you said this earlier, teaching kindness, I think there's a lot more kindness, that we need to infuse into the world. So that begins to continue.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So earlier you mentioned about bridging the gap, right? So how long does it take to start bridging the gap, right? So somebody comes on board and they say, hey, just give me 3 tips. Let's go. I got a meeting. I'm done. Or is it like with me, I'm in the business of coaching consistently, right? You grow when you coach, when you're coached consistently. Sports don't have a coach for a month. They have a coach always.
Yeah.
There are multiple coaches on a team. So what's bridging the gap, and then what's just staying in front of it?
This is probably, I feel like, one of the number one things that I am hired to do. And I don't think people really see that off the bat. They just see that they're having some struggles within the company and the way they're operating. I would say the nice part about etiquette training is that when I come in and do a program, we lay out guidelines and, we discuss the way things should be, and then everyone can see it. Everyone's on the same page. It's not pointing the finger that what you're doing is wrong or what you're doing, is incorrect, but that here is like the way, when we go to this networking event, this is what we expect from you. This is how we can be our best. And so it's just helping people see that it's not, saying you're right or you're wrong, but saying this is the way it should be done. This is the way our brand, our company should operate. And so just sort of laying out those guidelines and helping them understand that it's, as different as we all may communicate right now, we need to figure out where this company wants to be and how they want to operate.
Right. You're only as high as your lowest standard.
Right. Exactly.
And it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. And companies that can connect with those and understand what those mean are typically aware companies that are raising the bar and realize that what you're teaching them, the nuances that become standards within the culture and lining of their companies to better their people, ultimately better the company. So
100%. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's when you invest in your people, you invest in the company, the bottom line, and your clients. So I think that's great. All right, Danielle, before we get into the speed round, tell everybody who your ideal clients are and how they can get a hold of you.
Okay, so my ideal client would be anyone who's looking to either improve themselves, their business, their team. And it can be, like I said, and I do children's workshops, I do private sessions, I do group sessions. So really it's anyone just looking to be the best they can be and to improve, their overall goal of their company. Right. And you can reach, so my website is Detroit Academy of Etiquette.com. And do you want my email or?
Sure, whatever you want to go.
Yeah, so Danielle at Detroit Academy of Etiquette.com.
All right. Ready for the quick speed round?
Yeah.
All right. Favorite book and why?
Okay. So I did get to watch Kevin, so I had a little practice.
All right.
There's a business book called Don't Eat the Last Donut by Judith Bowman. And I love the message. It's basically about what we've talked about having an awareness of how we make people feel. And don't be the slob at the event that eats all the last crumbs on the table, but to be there, for the right reasons and not about the food and alcohol and all that.
Yeah. There's someone in my family who always takes the last whatever. And so I so couldn't connect with that my whole life I will never take the last.
Or be the first one to get your food. That's super good too. Like, we know who those people are. You don't forget.
I know. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I've been going back and forth with this one, but I think it's leaning into uncomfortable and awkward moments, and don't shy away and miss opportunities because you feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Even like with, how to communicate with people with a handshake or this or that, like ask people their preference. Don't hesitate. Don't miss an opportunity because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a great one. We've talked about starting your own company and taking the plunge, moving from corporate America. A lot of kids graduating college today with, figuring out what they want to do with their lives. What would you recommend? What's your advice to them?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I know Kevin said travel the world. I feel like that would be different for me. So we got to get on the same page about that.
Right.
But, I think find what truly makes you happy. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people are going after maybe how much a profession makes. I just think like find what really makes you happy and go for it, because you're going to be doing that for a long time. So make sure it's something rewarding and makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah. Well said. Well said, Danielle. It was great having you on the podcast today. I appreciate all the tips and advice and wisdom and everything that you shared. Thanks so much to everybody who's listening. Thanks. Appreciate your time. And any last thoughts before we sign off?
Just be kind to each other, treat people with respect. That's really the foundation of etiquette.
Yeah.
So keep that going.
I love that. I love that. And we could all use a little bit more etiquette. So I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you very much. And it's great.
Thank you, Jon.
You have been a big fan and friend of your husband's for a long, long time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.